Praise you, Lord Jesus Christ.
My dear brothers and sisters, today we celebrate a very important feast of the Church, and this is the feast of Peter and Paul. This is a big celebration in the Vatican, in Rome, because approaching the Vatican, the bridge approaching the Vatican City, you could just imagine that what welcomes you is the two images of Peter and Paul. Not only that, but even there is the big statue of Peter and Paul. And there are two basilicas dedicated to Peter and Paul. St. Peter's Basilica and St. Paul outside the wall. And here, it only gives us that in the history, tells us about that these two apostles, they are considered the two great pillars of the church. Peter and Paul. Peter would symbolize the magistrate or the teaching office of the church, in which we can hear in our gospel today, it says, "Blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah, for flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, but my heavenly Father. And I say to you, you are Peter. Upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of the netherworld shall not prevail against it." And here we could see that the very foundation of the Church, the Catholic Church, is in fact from Peter, the successor of Jesus, as the very first Pope and the very of Rome. And it says, "I will give you the keys to the kingdom of heaven. Whatever you bind on earth shall be bound in heaven. Whatever you loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven." Saint Peter would remind us of this, the teaching office of the church, and also the chair of Peter. That's why we call it chair of Peter. And gives us the very structure or hierarchy of the church. And Paul also would symbolize and gives us the clarity. He defined most of what we call teachings of the church. You could just see that when you see these two images or statues of Peter and Paul, Peter is holding, Paul is holding a book. And today we celebrate their birthday in heaven. To tradition, they both died on June 29th. And this was actually, they are remembered by the manner of death. Saint Peter was, while Saint Paul was beheaded. And this is actually what we celebrate today. Their birthday in heaven. Which, if we have to look at this, it gives us that Peter and Paul, they have been roles in the church. Peter, as we know, we have this Petrine or Petrine office. in which we could just see it speaks about the order of the church, the hierarchy of the church. It speaks about the, the, the teaching of the office of the church. While Paul would also complement, support in this office by his clarity. We know that Paul was a great theologian. Paul was a great writer, where we can read all his writings, especially the different Christian communities. Paul was then more on give us clarity of the things. So you can just imagine that these two pillars of the Petrine and Pauline office complement each other, in which we could just see that these are two great pillars. The very meaning of the celebration of today of Saints Peter and Paul would remind us, my dear brothers and sisters, the very, what we call, how we have to govern our communities, and how we have also to live our life as Catholic Christians after the example of Peter and Paul. A balance in the manner that we have to, and also our pastoral management, and also our approach, in which we don't only focus on structures in the office, in which it symbolizes the Petrine office, but let us not forget that we are a community. We are to look into the needs of our community. That is organization of community, clarity of teachings, and also building up the body of Christ as Christians, in which we need also to be guided in our faith-seeking understanding. The very meaning of the celebrations is this. This is how we are to live as a community. We all know that these two separate offices of Christ, but we are challenged to strike the balance of these two. As follower of Jesus, disciples of Jesus, and also as we are trusted in great responsibilities of the church, always be balanced. No? Hindi lang po we focus on structures, but let us not forget that formation, in which this is what we attribute and remember today with Saint Peter, which even in our leadership, in our community, in our past, we must always take the examples of Peter and Paul. That as we to what has been handed on to us, the orthodoxy of our teachings, then let us not also forget that the very core of our Christian community is the faith-seeking understanding, in which Paul helped us to understand more of our faith, especially in the teachings of Jesus. As we celebrate today this great feast of the church, that each one of us reminded, especially entrusted to our pastoral leadership, to follow the examples of Peter and Paul, to live in the balance in the examples of Peter and Paul.
Please all stand for the universal prayer.